Shoto has fallen. Ida has fallen. Hawks is barely standing and quirkless. And many of our favorite heroes are being consumed by the fire of this final war. Sadman's Parade is devouring heroes left and right. And this could be it for many of the heroes unless Ochako can stop Toga right here and now. But it gets worse. Much, much worse. With so many heroes already being taken out of the fight by the villains, the two most important villains, All For One and Shigaraki, are about to have a disturbingly clear path to victory. Was this part of All For One's master plan all along? Let's get into it. You guys know the drill. If you enjoy our MHA content and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment right now. It only takes you a second, but it helps me with that YouTube algorithm. And over 50% of you guys who watch my videos regularly are not subscribed to the channel. Remember that subscribing is completely free and it helps me out a lot. Finally, this video will contain MHA manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. In the previous chapter, Shoto managed to stop Dabi from blowing up and taking out his entire family in the process. Shoto used his ultimate attack, Flash Fire Fist Phosphor Great Glacial Aegir, and yeah, that's a mouthful, and with the help of the powerful ice quirks used by his mother and two other siblings, he managed to cool down the entire battlefield with what can only be described as like an ice explosion. When all was said and done, Shoto was still standing, Rei, Fuyumi, and Natsu are injured but alive, and Dabi and Endeavor are lying on the ground. Dabi's flames have been extinguished, and he is now little more than a charred corpse, but he is still not dead, at least not yet. Endeavor then apologized to every member of his family individually, almost like he was saying a final goodbye to all of them before dying. The last chapter ended as Toga looked towards the battlefield where Dabi was fighting and seemingly implied that he had just died. But of course there was no confirmation of Dabi's death. She may just think he died because his flames were extinguished, and to be fair, he does look very close to death, but this is a shonen series, so you cannot assume that anyone is dead until you actually see the dead body, and people are actually acknowledging that the person is dead. And even then, it's still not 100% certain, so we can't jump to conclusions. Unfortunately, the latest chapter doesn't give us any definitive death confirmations, although we do get to see some of the aftermath of the Dabi battle, including disturbing images of Shoto and Hawks, but more on that later. First, we have to talk about Toga and Sadman's Parade, because that fight is still raging and Toga is continuing to create more and more Twice clones without an end in sight. Toga is convinced that all heroes must die, and she is mercilessly attempting to game end all of them. We see that multiple pro heroes are struggling to survive amidst the never-ending onslaught of Twice clones, including Pixie Bob and Tiger from the Wild Wild Pussycats. Up to this point, Pixie Bob had been using her powerful earthbending quirk to keep the army of clones at bay, but at this point we see her being overtaken by the clones, and Tiger is very worried not only for her safety, but also he knows that without her quirk, there's going to be no way of containing Sadman's Parade. You get the feeling that the heroes are falling to Sadman's Parade one by one, and if the real Toga isn't defeated soon, the heroes will lose this battle just like they lost the battle against All For One. The heroes know that Toga's time limit for how long she can keep using Twice's quirk depends on how much of his blood she was able to consume, but there is no way to know just how much blood she consumed, and so there is no way to know how long Sadman's Parade is actually going to last. As of right now, there is no indication that Toga is gonna stop anytime soon, and the heroes know that even a single mistake in this battle could lead to all of them literally drowning in an endless stream of clones in a matter of seconds. We then get a brief glimpse of the aftermath of the battle with Dabi, and we see that Shoto has dropped to the ground and lost consciousness. We also see Ida, who is injured and exhausted in the middle of the street. And we see Hawks, who is standing alone with a blade in his hand, and he too looks like a walking corpse. He is severely injured and absolutely exhausted, and it is clear that he is barely standing. Kudos to him for getting back up on his feet, but with how injured he is and seeing how he no longer even has his quirk, I don't know how much he can actually do now. I mean, I respect him for getting up, but unless he can find some sort of healing potion, I think he will remain off the board for the foreseeable future. And speaking of heroes who are off the board, remember Bakugo, guys? Whatever happened to him? Anyway, back in the battle against Toga, Ochako is still fighting fiercely as the Twice clones command her to die. The real Toga is wondering whether Toya also died and left her behind, just like Twice did. And Ochako manages to locate her and grab a hold of her with her wrist rope thingy. Well, that's not the technical term, but you know what I mean. They're like those grappling hooks that she releases from her wrist support items that allow her to grab onto things and people. Ochako then tries to talk to Toga once again, because she knows that when they talked before, she kind of just dismissed Toga as a villain who needed to stop hurting innocent people. She is now trying to relate to Toga more in order to calm her down. And she says that she knows that Toga has been crying, and that she is not just some heartless, evil monster. Ochako says that she thinks she knows why Toga has been unable to fully become Twice, and actually use the quirks of the other people she cares about, including Dabi and Shigaraki. Ochako believes that it's not because Toga doesn't love Dabi and Shigaraki, rather, it's because Toga has mixed her pure feelings of love for her friends with her murderous intent towards the heroes, and this has diluted the purity of her love. Put simply, Toga is trying to become her friends and use their powers for the sole purpose of getting revenge against the heroes, but that means she isn't really doing it for love anymore. She is essentially trying to use her love for her friends to make herself into a more effective mass murderer, but that's not how love works. Love is supposed to be pure and selfless. It's not supposed to be a means to achieving a specific end, and especially not such a dark and violent end. In short, Toga's obsession with revenge has clouded the purity of her love for her friends. This theory seems to strike a chord with Toga, because she suddenly becomes furious and the Twice mask begins to slip from her face. She says, "You shut your mouth, Ochako Uraraka. What could you possibly understand about me?" But Ochako understands that she must be on to something, because Toga is clearly reacting to her words, and she seems to be turning back into Toga again, even though up to this point she had just been blending in with the other clones. This is Ochako's chance to face off against Toga, the real Toga, once and for all. I think that Ochako has figured out something important here. Even though she is a psycho who doesn't understand why doing bad things to other people is wrong, Toga does have genuine feelings of love for her friends, and she doesn't like those feelings being evaluated and questioned by Ochako. She also doesn't think that someone as selfless and heroic as Ochako could ever understand her and what she had gone through as a complete outcast who was rejected by society due to her socially unacceptable behavior. But maybe Ochako can get inside the mind of Toga, at least long enough to place some seeds of doubt into Toga's plan to kill all the heroes. Ochako knows that if she doesn't stop Toga right here and now, many heroes and hero students will be trampled to death by the Twice clones. So Ochako has to find a way to stop this. If she can't stop it physically by overpowering all the clones, then she has to stop it psychologically by confusing Toga and making her doubt herself. And as things stand now, this Toga fight will likely end soon, one way or the other, and then we will finally get to see the last two battles. All for One versus All Might, and Deku versus Shigaraki. With all these massive battles reaching their conclusion in the recent chapters, I've been starting to think that things might actually be going according to All for One's master plan. I mean, think about it. All for One decisively won the big fight at Gunga, and in the process he took a bunch of extremely powerful heroes and hero students off the board. This includes the number 2 pro hero Hawks, as well as Mount Lady, Tokoyami, and many more. As far as the Dabi fight goes, he lost to Shoto in the end, but from the looks of it, both Shoto and the number 1 pro hero Endeavor have also been taken off the board as a result of this fight, along with Ida just for good measure. Now the Toga fight is reaching its climax, but by the end of it, we can assume that many of the heroes there and the hero students from Shiketsu will also be unable to continue fighting. Even if they win in the end, most of them will be too injured and too exhausted to continue the war. So that means that All for One and Shigaraki are going to have far fewer heroes to deal with than they did before. So in that sense, All for One and Shigaraki are progressing towards victory. I mean, if All for One can take out All Might and Shigaraki can take out Deku, there really won't be that many heroes and hero students left to oppose them. And even if a bunch are left, they won't be strong enough to do so. So this war could still go either way. If we step back and look at the war objectively, the heroes have taken out some important villains, but they're not exactly winning. We are still far away from a happy shonen ending that most of us are expecting. What do you guys think? Is the war actually going according to All for One's master plan, or do you think that the heroes have the advantage? How will the Toga and Ochako showdown end, and who will be left standing in the end? Finally, what will happen in the final two battles, the battles against All for One and Shigaraki? Let me know down below. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see more MHA content in the future, leave a quick like right now. And if you are one of the over 50% of people who watch my videos regularly but haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, do me a huge favor and make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. Subscribing on YouTube is completely free, it only takes a few seconds, but it means a lot for the channel. Thank you in advance. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at AnimeUproar. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys!